Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I am the Dorset Spur and this is the weekly Tottenham news review. Each week I'll be going through all the news and stories are making the headlines and giving you my opinion on all of those. So anyway, listen, first off, I guess we can't not talk about Mauricio Pochettino making lots and lots of headlines around the different news sources over the last few days. So Pochettino has stated he wants to return to Tottenham one day. I still feel in my heart that yes, I would like to one day come back. And Daniel and I have a very, very good relationship. I've made mistakes at Tottenham and there is an expectation now to win at Tottenham. I would like to win one day with Tottenham. We were very close before. Interesting words from Mauricio Pochettino. It's quite interesting, the timing. It seems a bit of a strange one, to be honest. Is he toting himself around for a job? Which I would like to think he probably isn't. He got the World Cup coming up. He's just signed a contract with the USA to run that. So it'd be interesting if he was trying to get out of that job and come back to Tottenham. I don't think that's the case, personally. I think it's more a case of he's having an interview. They've asked him the question. He clearly has an affinity with Tottenham Hotspur and has fond memories and so on, and probably some unfinished business. And so, in my mind, I think he's probably just thinking about it from that point of view and talking honestly and openly. Personally, I think it's probably a little bit disrespectful when you're trying to talk about other managers coming into a job where there's someone already in there. I find that quite a difficult thing. Whether you are Ange in or Ange out, whether you believe Ange is the right man doing a good job or he's really poor. I know he kind of splits a lot of opinion around the fan base, but it is rather disrespectful to be touting his job around. But listen, that's what news outlets, newspapers, and so on do. That's how they make their money, I guess. But of course, what's made this even more kind of relevant at the moment is that if you're like me and you kind of spend time looking at different social media, you will probably have seen the photo floating around of Daniel Levy and Mauricio Pochettino sitting down having a coffee. When that first came out, I kind of thought, well, that's interesting. But then I looked into it, and there was other people had put up the same photo, but showing it from 2021, which kind of made me think, well, okay, so maybe someone's just, putting stuff out there just to kind of mess with our heads, and showing this as an old picture as relevant now. That's been disputed. I have seen other people that have come out and said, well, actually, the place didn't open until 2024. So to be honest with you, I don't know whether it's a new picture or an old picture or what. But in my mind, I would think if you are having conversations about taking on a job, they're not going to be doing that outside a cafe for the whole world to see. That would be done behind closed doors, where they would talk about that sort of stuff and have lawyers and all that kind of stuff, agents and everything, to talk about how they're going to structure that, how that's going to look, and so on and so forth. So I don't personally think there's too much in it. I think this is just two people that have worked together, that have a decent relationship, are able to kind of meet up, have a coffee, chew the fat, and talk about old times. So I don't think there's anything to get too excited about, if I'm being honest. Now, my own personal view on this, Mauricio Pochettino, would I like to see him back at Tottenham? Yeah, one day, I think it would make sense. Yeah, he does have some unfinished business. He was a good coach. He gave us some really, really good times as a Tottenham fan. So we would always be looked back at with fondness. But at the same time as that, you have to kind of consider, look, things wasn't going as well as we'd like them to towards the end. But Mauricio was talking a lot in riddles. Some of his comments, you couldn't work out what he was talking about. Some of the decision making that he was making was strange, and you kind of had it in your mind. You're like, I don't know where you're going with this, and so on. We had a very, very lucky time getting all the way to the Champions League final. We got through a bit of luck, VAR, and that sort of stuff. And you do need that. You need that absolutely to get to a final. So things wasn't going great. There's a lot going on, and as he says himself, he's learnt a lot. He's gone away. He's been to PSG. He's won things there, and so on. He then went to Chelsea, which me personally, I wasn't happy with. If you look on my channel, you'll see I called him a traitor and said that was a disgusting thing to do. Really, really got under my skin. But listen, you know, football's football. He's left there, and he's now managing the USA. So, like I say, I don't think that is likely to happen. I don't think he's likely to come into the football club. But I would welcome him back one day. Just not sure that the timing is right at this moment in time. I think from a fan's perspective, he would probably be the ideal choice if you were looking to replace the manager, because I think he would galvanise everybody, because everybody looks back. Not say everybody, majority of people will probably look back with fondness and think maybe the good times could come, because he wasn't backed by the ownership, and he was kind of left to, you know, to deal with what he was dealing with. But you know, this is a guy. He did make some mistakes. Like I said, I saw that Kyle Walker talked about the fact that he was told by Pochettino that he wasn't in the plans and he wanted to go with Kieran Trippier as opposed to Kyle Walker, and that's why Kyle Walker moved on, which I think is a crazy decision, absolute crazy decision, looking at how he kind of progressed from there. So for sure, Pochettino had some stuff to learn, but he was a young coach then. Maybe he's learned a little bit more from that point of view. But so never say never. The door is not closed in my view. But I personally don't think that's going to happen. So I'm not going to get excited about that situation. But of course, moving on from that, we have had various reports talking about the managerial situation for Tottenham, and the Daily Telegraph put out a story saying that Andoni Iraola at Bournemouth and Marco Silva at Fulham would be the candidates that Tottenham are looking for to take the club forward. Again, I'm just, for me personally, and this is just my personal point of view, I just feel that we would end up in the same situation that we're in now in 18 months' time. Whilst I think Iraola has done a really good job at Bournemouth, this is really first full season where he's kind of really done something special with them. They are suffering with injuries, of course. It's been well documented that they've had some injuries, but their injuries are not necessarily for the type of players that our injuries have been for. I know people have called that as a comparison. I don't tend to agree with that. I think a lot of their injury issues have been players that are not necessarily their first team starters or they're in their best 11. But of course, he's done very, very well. He's got some really good results and so on. But this is just one season where they've only really had, they've got no midweek games with Europe and that to consider. So it'll be interesting to see whether he can keep that up next season if they get into Europe. What kind of backing is he going to get? What sort of players does he buy? And how does that shape up next season? Will Bournemouth actually keep hold of him anyway? Because I understand there is interest from Madrid as well. So that'll be interesting from that point of view. The other one that talking about as well, Marco Silva at Fulham, again, another guy, done really, really well at Bournemouth. He's got him into a really, really good position. He's been around the Premier League a little bit longer and so on. But for me personally, I'm not convinced that Daniel Levy and the board will be backing this manager in a different way or leading us in a different way that is not going to lead us back to exactly where we are now, which is 18 months or so onwards, looking to recycle again because we haven't achieved what we need to achieve and so on. Me personally, I wanted to see when Postecoglou came in, I wanted to see us actually have a really big go at restructuring the club, moving out the players that we've had for so long, bringing in some youth, bringing in some players from the youth team, adding to that with some ready now players that can help support and develop these players that you're bringing in, set up a decent way of playing football, and really start us to progress as a club rather than just a team. That's what I was hoping for under Postecoglou, and I still feel that's something that we really need. I think we've transferred a lot of players out, brought a lot of players in, and we have, some stepping stones in there of decent players to build on. But a rebuild needs to continually rebuild. There are players now that we have that probably need to move on to freshen the squad and to develop the squad and to bring in some more quality. I'm just not convinced that that's what's going to happen under Iraola or Silva, to be honest with you. And that's why I say I think if the club was going to change, I think someone like Pochettino would probably be the wiser choice, because having given him time before, I think he would probably get a bit more opportunity maybe than either of the other two guys with an 18-month turnaround. But listen, that it's just my point of view. You may watch more of Bournemouth and Fulham games than I do. You may be more interested in their type of football, what they're achieving, and so on and so forth. But for me personally, I just want to see some consistency, some longevity in what we're trying to do. I want to see a plan on where we're going, and I'm not sure that those guys would be the ones that would get us excited about really going forward. I look at the results that they've had so far this season, and realistically, they've had, I think both of the clubs have had like 2 more wins than Spurs have had. And also on top of that, the big change has been in terms of the amount of draws they've had as opposed to the amount of draws we've had. I think that's the difference really, and that's kind of where we're sitting below them. Obviously, we've had a terrible season with all the injuries, so you have to kind of take that into account as well. And as I say, this isn't me advocating that Postecoglou has to stay. What I'm advocating for is, if we are going to change, then we need to have a longer term plan that's going to last more than 18 months. I'm just not sure that either of those two guys are going to get that opportunity. So anyway, of course, it's now international break, and we have seen Heung-min Son has recently stated in an interview that he is in excellent physical condition. I'm in the best shape I've ever been. It's interesting because if I'm being totally honest, in my mind, I was looking at Sonny's performances and thinking to myself, he must be carrying an injury. He must have something wrong. And that's why he's not putting in the performances that we would really like to see from him. Some real consistency and some attacking play, taking players on, crossing the ball and so on. I'm not saying he's had the worst season that he's ever had, but certainly our expectation from him has been more than he has produced so far. So it's really interesting to hear him say that he believes he's in really good physical condition, the best he's ever been, because that's not translating onto the pitch. Not in my opinion anyway. I think he looked to me like he's been holding back, not really going at players, not really taking players on. So I'm not sure what's going on there, whether it's a tiredness thing because he's played a lot of football. So I don't know if he's not carrying an injury and he feels he's in his best shape, then what's stopping him really showing that form on the pitch? So a bit disappointing really that's the case. Not that I want him to be injured, but I was hoping that maybe something's kind of holding him back and he's going to get back to where he's been previously. So we'll see. I mean, he's playing for his country over the next couple of weeks. So we'll see what his performances are like at that. And then hopefully when he comes back to Tottenham, we've got all our players back. He can come back fresh, have breaks when required, and he can get back to some kind of form that that we're really expecting from him. Yeah. So also sticking with the players on international duty, there are various reports coming out that Romero is open to joining Real Madrid in the summer. Well, of course he is. Of course he is. I think a lot of players out there, certainly South American players, Spanish players for sure, always hold Real Madrid out as the team to play for, right? It's an iconic football team, wins everything, La Liga, Champions League, and all the rest of it, and has had some of the greatest players that have played football play for them. So it would be, I guess it would be astounding for a footballer to say that they wasn't interested in having the opportunity to play for Real Madrid. However, Romero's contract is still until something like 2027, I believe. So there's still time on his contract. So if Real Madrid wanted him, they would have to pay an awful lot of money to try and get him. The difficult part from our point of view is we've not seen Romero play an awful lot of football. But when he does play football and he gets back to his freshness and so on, you can see what a difference he makes. And he's certainly a player that we don't really want to lose. Not the sort of player you would want to take out of this squad at this moment in time. I know some other people have had different views on that and have thought, it's time to go. He's only ever fit for Argentina and all this sort of business. But a player like that is it's not the sort of player you can just let go willy-nilly. And so for me, I would like to see Spurs, if they're serious about building a squad capable of competing in these competitions, that's the sort of player they need to keep hold of, the sort of player you need to keep fit, the sort of player you need to incentivize to want to stay and really achieve things at your club rather than just swanning off to a big name in Spain. So, yeah, I personally, whilst he may be open to joining them, I don't think Tottenham would be open to selling him. So it would just be interesting to see how he reacts to that, if that is the case that he really, really wants to go. Personally, I think it's probably paper talk, clickbait kind of stuff. And you'll get that all the time for your best players. You will always have other clubs being touted for these other players. Moving on, Ian Wright said this week that Spurs have so much going for them, but they are so slack and sloppy in defence. They should work on retaining the ball. Kind of a bit obvious statement, really, but I've got a lot of respect for Ian Wright. He may well have been, a legend for our biggest rival, but I always look at Ian Wright and think to myself, you are a legend of Burnley. For instance, I consider him a Burnley player rather than an Arsenal player. Anyway, Ian Wright is a really good pundit. He speaks very well of Tottenham. He always supports Tottenham and talks openly and in the right way. He's not bitter and twisted like some of these other Arsenal pundits are, and he's always fairly complimentary. He actually said on the overlap the other week that he would like to see Tottenham win something because he likes Ange Postecoglou and feels that he deserves it. So, to have a big rival talk like that is nice to hear. But he's right. He's absolutely right. We need to retain the ball better. We need to stop the sloppy passing and so on, because it's that's letting us down. We're never over played on the pitch, apart from maybe Liverpool. We've never really been played off the pitch. We've held our own for a lot of these games, but it's always a sloppy mistake that costs you. Hence why we kind of losing most games by one goal rather than getting absolutely hammered. So it makes absolute sense what you're saying. But I guess a lot of it is around this high line. The fact we pass around the back a lot. So we need to get back to moving the ball quickly, one-touch passing, moving the ball, as fast as you can from back to front, which we know we can do. We've seen them do it. Even recently against AZ Alkmaar on the other Wednesday, where they played great football, from Vicario all the way through the pitch. and plodded home. So we know we can play that kind of football, but you have to retain that and stop panicking and hoofing the ball out wherever you can and playing sloppy passes into players that are surrounded by other players, which then means that these guys need to move more and give that other player the opportunity. So it makes an awful lot of sense what he's talking about, and I totally agree with Ian Wright. I don't think you can disagree on that point, to be fair. Harry Redknapp said this week, it's been a terrible season, but if Ange wins the Europa League, it will give him time next year to do better in the league. I think obviously we're still in the Europa League, so there's still an opportunity for silverware. It's going to be difficult. We're going to need a bit of luck and so on, and we need to be focused and playing our good football to actually win it. But it's still possible. If you're in the competition, it's still possible. You still get the opportunity to win this game. So from my point of view, I would absolutely love to see Ange Postecoglou lift that trophy, to be able to continue to say he always wins something in his second season. And I think it's a good opportunity. I do think if he wins the competition, he gets more time, because it gets you into the Champions League. It gets you the opportunity to then continue with this rebuild that we need to do. Either way, win it or lose it, we still need to rebuild this team. We still need to bring more players in. We saw the reason why we've fallen away so badly was because we didn't strengthen for those couple of windows after Pochettino. So can't afford to make that mistake again. You've got to keep building. You've got to keep buying the right sort of players. We need more experience in the team. We need more high-profile types of players that can come in and actually walk straight into the first team and improve it. For me, Ange Postecoglou winning that, I think Harry's right. I think he would get more time if he can win that competition, get that monkey off our back and start us moving on. I think even Tim Sherwood went as far as to say that we would have a statue of Ange Postecoglou out if we won. Don't quite agree with that. We can't put a statue of Bill Nicholson out. I don't think we're going to put a statue of Ange Postecoglou out just for winning the Europa League. But it would feel like something you would need to commemorate, right? Because it's been so long since we've won anything. Moving on, France's under-21 manager has been talking about Matthias Tel, and he said he is a player with great potential, but must show that he is efficient and effective. So still work to be done, and I think that's absolutely spot on. To be honest with you, I think most fans were really keen that we signed Matthias Tel. Man United were interested. I think Chelsea were interested. So that shows that he is well thought of in the football team. Still a very, very young man, 19 years of age. But even like the goal he scored against Villa was absolutely brilliant goal. And the opportunity he had against Fulham at the weekend looked, a real class act. Can play across the front three. He's been with us somewhere like 6 weeks or something like that. So I think it's far too early for us to consider whether he is a flop or whether he is a good acquisition. He seems like he's settled in well. He seems to have settled in with the other players really well, which is good to see. It does look very much like he's behind the manager and supports the manager and what the manager's trying to do. You saw him talking to the fans after the Fulham game and supporting the manager when he was getting some abuse from Fulham fans as they were leaving the pitch. So it looks to me like he's keen to be part of the squad and keen to be part of the team. And that's what you want. You want players that want to play with you. You want players that have got really good potential, but that also have a little bit of longevity with them as well. He's only 19 years of age. So it's great to have that, especially when you consider, you've got Udogie, you've got Sarr, you've got Gray, you've got Bergvall, you've got all these really young players in and around that squad. But it would be great to have some, a little bit more experience in there to help those players through, to give them the quality and to show them what we need. But I do think that in time, Tel will show exactly what we brought him in for, giving us that opportunity from both the left, the right, and through the centre. So, I think it's a bit early to say whether he's going to be a superstar, but the signs are already there. France under 21 player and so on. So and coming from Bayern Munich as well, who don't just buy anyone. Interesting to see about that. Keeping the theme of players coming in, Give Me Sport has reported that Spurs want signs that the Southampton player Tyler Dibling. It's not the first time we've heard that. It's been talked about a fair bit. Man United also after him, which kind of tells you the sort of company he's keeping. I think when we watched him when we played them, when we beat them 5-0, thought he was their standout player, played really, really well. Again, very, very young man, so kind of fits the bill to the players that we would want to bring in. And I'm not against bringing in young players, but I do want us to be linked with some players that are ready now, that are going to be able to do the business for us and help this young squad. But you do have to try to tie these young players down early, because before you know it, especially English youngsters as well, the price of them goes up and up and up and up, and then you're priced out of it and you're not able to buy that top talent, which was why it was key that we picked up Archie Gray and Bergvall, Yang as well, who's obviously out on loan at QPR and doing fairly well. So it wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't in for him. It's been talked about, fits the bill, decent player, young man with lots of opportunity to grow and to develop. So for me, I'd be in for that. Whether he walks straight into the team and makes an impact, I'm not sure. I haven't seen enough of him to know that. But I wouldn't turn a great young talent down. We've had a good player from Southampton before in Gareth Bale, so you never know how that could kind of turn out, right? So, and finally, of course, I can't not talk about Radu Dragusin's agent, who's at it again. Of course, why wouldn't he be? Seems to do this an awful lot. But he has stated that Radu misses Italy and could return one day, and has stated all players would like to be trained under Conte at Napoli. And they were interested in him before he came to Tottenham. I personally think this agent probably needs to kind of just calm down, quieten down a little bit. Radu Dragusin's come in. He's been given good opportunities at Tottenham. He's had some decent games. He's performed fairly well in some games, but he's also not played very well in other games. So he's been really, really inconsistent from our point of view. He's obviously out injured now with a long-term injury. We're unlikely to see him the rest of this season. So he's going to have to start again next season and see what he can build on that to see whether he's actually going to become a mainstay in this squad. We've obviously brought in Kevin Danso as well. So there will be even more competition for Radu Dragusin. He may well want to play under Conte at Napoli, but do Napoli actually want him? Does Conte actually want him or not? So that's something else that the agent will have to consider. But it seems to me this guy is toting his player around left, right, and centre, trying to unsettle him wherever he goes. I don't think it's good for the player. I don't think it's good for his development. He's still a very, very young man who needs to kind of grow and be consistent in what he's trying to do. And that's not where he is at the moment. So maybe in a couple of years' time, when he has made the centre back role at Tottenham his role and his position, and he's blowing everyone away, then you can start talking about these other teams and where he needs to go next and all the rest of it, and bring Tottenham a nice, healthy profit. But at this moment in time, I think you probably need to sit down and concentrate on some of your other clients and get them to where they need to be. Because at the moment, Radu Dragusin needs time, and that's my view on that. But listen, this is what agents do all the time, right? They're always trying to make money. They're always trying to tout their players around to get the best deal for them. That's their job. So you can't really knock him, I guess. So that kind of brings me to the end of the stuff that I've had down on my list of things to talk about. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. It'd be good to see that how many people actually agree with what I've got to say. If you don't agree, you obviously welcome to put your comments in the comment section below. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you think about this series, whether it's something you're enjoying or not. And of course, if you'd like to follow me, I am Lee the Dorset Spur, and I am on YouTube and all other social media, so you can find me there. I do a live show on a Tuesday evening, and I also do match reviews and views on different stories that come up and so on. So if you like what I do, please feel free to come over and give me a follow. Thanks to Chris as well for giving me this opportunity to be part of his great channel. And if you don't subscribe to Chris's channel, please make sure you do hit the subscribe button for Chris, because it all counts. So thanks very much for watching this episode. I'll see you on the next one, and as always, up the Spurs.